What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for UFC 296. This is one of those cards where you got to round the stable up. You're heading to the bar with all the boys. You're throwing a house party, inviting a bunch of people over. This is one of those types of cards. We are capping off 2023 with just an extraordinary card. This card is so stacked. I'm so excited for a variety of fights throughout this card. Of course, we got the main event matchup between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington. Now, Colby is coming off almost a 2-year layoff, and he's creeping up on 36 years old. So we'll see how he looks. Leon Edwards, in the meantime, while Colby's been out the game, he has 2 victories over one of the greatest welterweight champs of all time in Kamaru Usman. He's still only 32 years old. We'll get deeper into that fight towards the end of the show. You guys know how we do it. We start at the bottom of this card, work our way up to the top. We have timestamps here. Please check back in with me to see the recap of this card and see how I did as far as my official plays went. You guys can also check out UFC Vegas 83. That's posted here on the channel as well. You guys can see how I did there. And what else can we say? I'll let you guys know this real quick before we jump into this card. This is definitely an event that you want to be working with me on. I'm going to have a massive amount of units out on this card. There's some major plays that I'm targeting, and we're gonna finish off this calendar year with a bang. And this is it's gonna end with this card being one of the biggest and most profitable events of the year. Letting you guys know that right now. Please check me out on all my social media. It's scrolling below. It really means a lot to me if you can go follow me on IG and Twitter. It's scrolling below. And I'm on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller _, and I'm on Twitter at the MMA Teller. Please like this video, subscribe. And with all that being said, let's jump into the first fight.
The Teller, the Teller, the Teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA Fortune Teller.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The Teller, the Teller, the Teller, the Teller.
So we'll kick this thing off in the featherweight division, where we have the longtime Team Alpha male product, longtime UFC fighter Andre Fili taking on Lucas Almeida, a fighter that has made his way into the UFC a little bit more recently, came off Dana White's Contender Series, had a hell of a fight against Daniel Zoliber, which Zoliber has proven to be a very promising up-and-coming young fighter. And Lucas Almeida had a lot of success early on in that fight. If you guys remember, he was landing heavily on Zoliber, came in as an underdog, and it looked like he was going to get the nod as the fight was kicking off early on. And then Zoliber worked his way back into that fight and took it over. But we still saw that Lucas is a fighter that has very dangerous striking. Okay, this is a Muay Thai-based fighter. Coming out of Brazil, he's not really a fighter that I would say worries me too much down on the mat. This isn't a fighter that scares me with his BJJ. He is more of a Muay Thai-based fighter. He's a dangerous striker. You take a look at the fight that he had before he fought in Dana White's Contender Series against Nico Kukushio. He had a nasty, nasty flying knee victory in that fight. But I will note that he was taken down and controlled a little bit down on the mat early on in that fight. And that is something that could play into effect here. Andre Fili, of course, he has some wrestling in his back pocket. When you train over at Team Alpha Male for as many years as he has, you're definitely going to have some wrestling. You're definitely going to be putting a lot of time in on the wrestling mats with some great wrestlers. So understand that I do edge Fili to have a little bit of an X factor there. Although I think the fight will most likely play out on the feet, which could be good for Almeida, or which is good for Almeida, especially when you take a look at his last fight where he went against an extreme grappler in Pat Sabatini, and he was finished down on the mat. So stylistically, this does favor Almeida, but also note that Fili does have that little X factor that he could dip into if he chooses to. But, on the feet, this is a fight that I think can play out very closely. And listen, we're going to get to the betting line here in a second. Now, if we're going to see a finish in this fight, I think that the finish is more likely going to come from Lucas Almeida. He has shown to have some big power. We saw what he did to Michael Trezano in his UFC debut, finished him there. Also note that he did eat a big shot himself. He was hurt in that fight, but eventually he gets to knock it over Trezano. Early on in his career, he's like I said, he's had some nasty knockout victories. 8 knockout victories out of his 14, 67% of his victories. And, Andre Fili, as of recently, he really hasn't been putting anybody away. And I could see the knockout coming more from Lucas' side. And you also need to note that Andre Fili is much more prone to being finished. While Lucas Almeida has never been knocked out in any of his losses, Andre Fili has been knocked out twice, which maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but in those 2 losses, he was starched, right? He was put out in a brutal way. You think about the Brito knockout where he was finished very early on. That was a fighter that came into the UFC from Dana White's Contender Series, was looking to kind of put his name on the map, and he since has. Almeida is looking to kind of go down, copy that route of Joe Anderson Brito. Not sure if he'll do that, but still, he's trying to copy that blueprint there. We have to note the knockout loss that he had against Yair Rodriguez. Now, that was a little bit of a different type of scenario, and that was back in 2016. He was basically jump kicked in the head, but we've seen Fili knocked out, and I just feel that could be a little bit more of a likely scenario. All right, Fili will have a 3-inch reach advantage. I'm going to say the most likely scenario that I see here is that Andre Fili works his way to a decision, just maybe mixing in a couple takedowns, but actually even outpointing Almeida as the fight goes to a decision. Almeida brings some very dangerous offensive tools, but he also gets tagged up quite a bit when he's in the cage. Defensively, there's some holes. He's there to be hit at times, and we also mentioned that we question a little bit of the takedown defense. We're not completely sold on his takedown defense. So, I think that those signs point me to Andre Fili. Let's bring up the strength of schedule. Fili is a fighter that has fought the best men in the world for a long time, while on the other hand, Almeida is not nearly as proven as far as his resume goes. He has that one victory over Trezano, a UFC caliber fighter, right in the octagon. He had that victory, but other than that, he's been putting in work over on the regional scene, fighting over in Brazil, and he's fought some decent fighters, some tough fighters that are trying to make a name for themselves. But you cannot compare the strength of schedule. Fili has been in there with the most legitimate fighters in the world, so you also have to note that. We're gonna get to the betting line here in a second, but real quick, I know we're kicking the first fight off with the favorite pick in Andre Fili. I'm edging him to a decision. For all you guys that love dog picks, stick with me because I got plenty of dogs coming your way all throughout this card. Okay, I'll give you guys a heads up there. This is a dog eat dog card for me. But I was close to going with Almeida here, and I think is a likelihood that he gets that knockout victory. But I'm going to take Andre Fili to get that decision victory. I like Fili. He's 33 years old right now. Like I said, been training under Team Alpha Male for a long time. I know he's very hungry after just barely losing that Nathaniel Wood fight. Looked good in the second round there, but finished a little weak in the third round and let that fight slip out of his hands. I know he's very hungry. You check him out on IG. He's very motivated for this fight. It's a huge card. He's going to get up for this fight, and I like the experience he has. And I got to go with Fili here. All right, so I am taking Andre Fili to win a decision. He's a -180 favorite right now. Not necessarily ecstatic about that line. I'm not. I would love to get Fili more around a -150 line. Okay, so we don't have a lot of line movement to go off of right now. But I'm saying that there's more value on an Almeida +150 line, in my opinion. Okay, so if you're targeting this fight and you want to have action on it, I don't know if I could really chalk up a -180 on Fili, but I'm liking Fili decision. 2 mammoth men squaring off here, 2 legitimate heavyweights. Shamil Gaziev taking on Martin Buday. Shamil Gaziev just had that recent victory on Dana White's Contender Series. Martin Buday had his a while back. Gaziev had a little bit of a slow start to that victory against Greg Velasco. Greg Velasco was undefeated at the time, and the very short and stout heavyweight fighter just kind of had a brief moment where he was kind of bringing a little bit of a threat there to Gaziev, but Gaziev, quickly settled down and controlled that fight and eventually got the submission. I mean, within 2 minutes and 38 seconds. So, if anybody wasn't too impressed with his performance, I mean, do note that he finished that fight very rapidly. He came in looking as big as we ever seen him. I wasn't crazy about that, and I hope he doesn't come in looking like that for this fight, which I don't think that he is, based on his IG as of recently. I think he's looking a little bit trimmer. I don't know what was going on with that, but in that fight, he was really, really tipping the scales there, in the heavyweight division. And Buday is obviously a very big man, as I said. And that's why I think that I want to see Gaziev a little bit lighter on his feet. And I want him looking similar to what we've seen from him on some of his tape before he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. You can pull up a lot of his fights on YouTube. He's fought over in Brave. And he's not the most technical striker, but he's actually very accurate. And he's very long. And he lands on the mark, man. And he damages fighters. He finishes them up. And I'm interested to see how far he can push it. He has a couple respectable victories. Finished Darko Stosic, ex-UFC fighter. Had a victory over Karol Kornilov, a fighter that has a respectable resume. So, I mean, he's somewhat battle-tested, if you ask me. It's not like this guy's completely unproven. Martin Buday, even though he's been fighting in the UFC, his strength of schedule might almost be more questionable. Victories over Josh Parisian, Jake Collier, Lucas Bresky, and Chris Barnett, even with one of these being a split decision. I believe the Bresky fight was a close one. And some of these fights also played out pretty close. The Collier fight was a very close fight. And, I'm not a fan of his striking. He's just, what do I say about Martin Buday, man? I don't know. He's just not the most polished fighter. He's a fighter that has some BJJ skills, and he kind of uses his size and he imposes his will at times on these lower level fighters. But once he works his way up the food chain, I think that he definitely will start to run into plenty else, as he's only tasted defeat once so far. And just to clarify, that loss came early in his career against Juan Espino, a very proven fighter, even though he's been, he's dissipated as of recently. Juan Espino, man, I don't know what he's been up to. He needs to come back into the mix. He was one of the most promising up-and-coming fighters in the division. But so he's been getting all these W's, but down the line, I think the L's will be coming Martin Buday's way. And I think that he'll have an L coming his way on this card. I'm going to go with Shamil Gaziev here. I just think, especially once we get to this betting line, I think that the line is off for sure. Now, it's a close fight. I would say that much. I'm not extremely sold on Gaziev. I need to see more from him. I love the people that he surrounds himself with. You see him over here at Magomed Ankalaev. I mean, he obviously surrounds himself with some of the best in the world. He can grapple. He's a very confident fighter. That's what I like about him too, man. He marches forward. He's extremely confident, and we'll see how he looks on this, on the night. But as far as the betting line goes, look at this. I mean, you explain to me why he is a plus 150 dog. He's opening up as a plus 150 here in Jazz Sports. That doesn't seem to be legit to me, in my opinion. You see some line movement here in Bovada, where he opened as a plus 143, and we see action kind of going everywhere, really. I mean, he touched plus 150, and then he went back for a while to a plus 140. This is a lot of movement, but it's very slight movement. I mean, he's really settled in right around that plus 150 range, and I don't know why this fight's not a lot closer to pick-em odds. I guess people feel that Buday has proven himself. You see him, he's a minus 190 on my bookie, open as a minus 170. People are pretty high on that last performance that he had, where he went out there and caught a submission over Josh Parisian. I don't know. Just, we'll see how this fight plays out, but I will say this at the very least. I think that this is a fight where the line should be much closer. I think the ceiling on Shamil Gaziev is much higher. But yes, he does have a lot of things to work on as well, as Buday does. And great matchup. Both these guys have a lot of similarities. A lot of wins in their careers, a little bit pudgy, big heavyweights that need to prove themselves more. So give me Shamil Gaziev to does he get that sub, man? I mean, he's been a fight finisher. He's only gone to a decision once, so it's kind of hard to say that he wins a decision. On the other hand, Buday has never been finished, or we don't have the method of victory on that Espino fight. Of course, unfortunately, there probably went to a decision though. I'm going to say Gaziev gets the finish. I'm going to say that he ends up getting on top at one point or another, and maybe we see a TKO type finish where he can kind of get on top of Buday. Maybe a first or second round TKO victory for Shamil Gaziev. Cody, no love, Garbrandt taking on Brian Kelleher, one of my original arch nemesis in the game. Getting a huge opportunity here. The UFC has blessed him with some big opportunities. And, sometimes he's delivered on some of those opportunities, and a lot of times he's fallen short. Coming off a little bit of a layoff here. He's now 37 years old. His last fight, Kelleher's last fight, was against Mario Batista back in 2022. So he hasn't fought in about a year and a half. It is. And then he had that loss against Umar Nurmagomedov before that. Can't really shame him for that. And you guys know the book is out on Kelleher. Kelleher is a fighter that has been blessed by the UFC matchmaking. This guy has victories over, I would say that if you took his victories compared to any other fighter, if you compared them, he has victories over some of the most low-level UFC caliber fighters, or fighters that are not even UFC caliber, fighters that should never been on the roster. Domingo Pilarte, Kevin Kroom, the Rat, Ray Rodriguez, a fighter that jumped in on short notice. Hunter Azure is a tough dude. Oda Osborne's good. I think we're going to say that the Osborne fight is probably his most respectable. Even Renan Barao, that was another layup fight, a guy that was completely depleted. Renan Barao, if you look at his resume around that time, just was on like an 8-9 fight losing skid. He shouldn't even been in the cage. Probably had severe CTE. He was so damaged from the Dillashaw fights. Okay, you could say the Julio Arce. The Arce fight was outside of the UFC. That's probably his biggest victory. Respectable victory over Yuri Alcantara too. But he's had a lot of low-level victories in the octagon. And he's getting a little bit of a layup opportunity here too, because he's fighting a fighter in Cody that has a huge name. He's getting a giant opportunity, and we all know that Cody has no chin. And I don't know if you guys heard that. He actually changed his name now. It's not Cody No Love. It's Cody No Chin Garbrandt. You like that? I'm sure some of you guys already made that joke up online, but that just popped in the head there. I actually am a big fan of Cody's, and I want to see him go out there and get things back on track. I don't think that he ever will. He'll sneak victories off here and there, and he's still very talented with his footwork and his speed with his hands and all that. The guy just can't take a shot, though, and we saw it in his last fight, man. He was able to eke out a victory by just running away from Trevin. And Trevin fought a horrible fight because he didn't push the pace at all, put no volume out there. It would have only taken one shot to finish him there, and Trevin Jones fought a horrible fight. I think he was since cut from the UFC after that performance. He really dropped the ball. Should have just tried to engage in a barn burner type of fight, and Cody would have collapsed in there. And I think that Kelleher better follow that blueprint. Hopefully he's tuned in right now, listening to this. He better try to push the pace in this fight. And it's actually funny. I just bumped into somebody recently. I forget where it was, the bar, the sauna, whatever. And they're like, "Oh, I used to live in the same town as this UFC fighter, Brian Kelleher." And I was like, "Oh, Kelleher turd, huh?" It's funny because he was kind of talking about the channel and whatnot. But I didn't really go in too much about the whole situation with Kelleher turd. If you don't know the situation, hit the comment section up below. I'll let you know. But listen, I'm picking Cody to win this fight because I think that he can use his footwork and his speed to eke out a decision. He's a fighter that can get away with the inactivity in the cage because everyone's rooting for him, right? All the fans, they're going to be wanting to see him get a victory one way or another. So he can get away with the inactivity. He's a fan favorite, and I think he'll be on the bike throughout this fight. But it's only going to take one. If Kelleher can close the distance and corner him against the cage, he can clip him with the shot. And Kelleher does have some good power, some decent power. I would say underrated power. He's known for his guillotine, which is phenomenal. He could also potentially get Cody in a guillotine if Cody's just so worried about trying to run away and just trying to scramble and to get away from him. There is a possibility that Kelleher can somehow snag up a guillotine. Maybe he's too worried about eating a shot in the feet and falls into that scenario. And also, I'll just mention some of those big victories that Kelleher has had. He's knocked out, I believe he knocked out Hunter Azure, but the way he did that was pretty impressive. He knocked out Hunter Azure with a nice shot there, and he also, who else did he knock out? I know he had one other respectable knockout, and that was against Damian Stasiak back in 2017. He has the power to finish the fight there, but I will say Cody Garbrandt can run around enough to get the job done. But I'll tell you what, I am not chalking up a minus 240 on Cody Garbrandt here. He opened as 220 on my bookie. Action comes in on him. I just don't understand how you guys are trusting him at almost 2.5 to 1 odds there. I mean, how can you trust him chalking up that money? You're going to be sitting on the edge of your seat, and it's just and maybe he's just so inactive in there also that Kelleher fights with a good game plan and just lands a couple shots, even just kind of in a sparring type atmosphere, and just gets the decision because Cody's just so unwilling to engage. So give me Cody to eke out that decision, and I say that with very little confidence. We got 2 ranked light heavyweight fighters here. Alonzo Menifield at 14, taking on Dustin Jacoby at 15th. I really, really like this fight. This is a huge opportunity for both men. Both men have really gained a lot of momentum as of recently. And a victory on a stage like this, it puts them in the conversation for some big light heavyweight matchups. And if they want to work their way into that title picture, now is the time, right, for this card. And both men in their mid-30s, so it's not like they have forever. This fight is paramount to them trying to reach their aspirations. I'll say that this is a huge spot for both men. Now, Dustin Jacoby, I feel that he got the bad end of his decision against Kelleher Roundtree. I thought it was actually a fight that he clearly won 2 rounds, and I believe it was rounds 2 and 3. You could check the media scores. Everyone basically agreed with me on that. I think out of all the major medias, I think 20 were in agreement, and there was one media site that had Roundtree winning. But so that was a little bit of a tough outing there, because besides that loss, if that loss doesn't happen, and also if you take into consideration the Kutilaba fight, where I believe he was 10-8'd in the first round, and then he won the next 2 rounds. And I think that first round was debatable if it was a 10-8 anyway. But if that doesn't happen, he has the victory there, which he was the superior fighter as that fight played out. And if the Roundtree situation doesn't happen, this is a fighter that since that victory on Dana White's Contender Series, you conclude that we're talking about a fighter that has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of his last 11 fights. He's fighting respectable talent. Michal Oliasejczak, Da Un Jong, Kennedy and Shekowu. He had just had a victory over him. That was a good performance there. Had the first round knockout, a much needed victory. And the loss that he had against Azamat Mirzakhanov, we know that Azamat is a stud, right? He's an undefeated fighter that is he's been looking really good. So not too much shame against him for losing that fight. And now Alonzo Menifield, on the other hand, is a stud. He has crazy knockout power. If Jacoby is slipping, he could definitely be hit with a big shot and be put out. Now, the edges that I like for Jacoby here, I think if this fight plays out for the long haul, I think it points towards Jacoby's way in a major way. I think that he'll have the volume as long as he doesn't eat a big shot where he's hurt and the round gets snagged up by Menifield, or if he gets knocked out. I think there's a lot of signs pointing towards Jacoby voluming Menifield, being more diverse with his striking, using the kicks and all that. All right, so he's landing 5.46 in strikes per minute in the octagon right now compared to Menifield's 3.82. Now Menifield has been a little bit more defensively sound, only getting landed on at 3.09 compared to the 4.02 of Jacoby. But I still say the offensive output outweighs that for Jacoby. So I feel pretty good about Jacoby snagging up a decision victory if it goes there. But that is a big if. Menifield has dynamite in his hands, and he's a fight finisher. Just submitted Jimmy Crute, really got the better of Crute there. Even in that first fight, it was a draw, but he was the fighter really looking to finish that first fight against Crute as well. That was a wild fight. Struggled a little bit with the takedown defense, but that's not going to be the situation here. This is going to be a striking matchup when this fight takes place. Knocked out Misha Serkinov, knocked out Askar Mazarov, which that fighter is a fraud, I believe, right? That guy was a complete fraud, so that's not the biggest feather there. He did lose to William Knight. Okay, you take note of that. Victory over the old Ed Herman, Fabio Charant, the Water Buffalo. He's constantly being fed to the lions. I mean, what kind of nickname is that, right? He's just he's prey. All right, so he got finished by Ovince St. Preux, Devin Clark. Okay, so I mean, I don't want to throw too much shade at Alonzo Menifield because I think he is actually a really good fighter, and I think that he's coming to his own right now. But I think Jacoby is the superior fighter here, and I feel comfortable siding on being on Jacoby's side, and I edge him more for a decision, but I don't say that with any type of confidence because Jacoby is a fight finisher. It's the light heavyweight division, and we have seen Menifield finish before, so there's no way I'm going to sit here and say that with a lot of confidence. In fact, Jacoby might get the finish here, all right? He's a minus 250 favorite right now in my bookie, and we see big action coming his way early on. Opened as a minus 190 back in November 14th. Now on December 6th, he's at minus 250, okay? All right, 60 points of movement. That's a lot of movement there. And, we could take a look at Jazz Sports. You're seeing a lot of movement there. You're seeing movement all throughout these books. Same thing on Bovada there. So, if you were on Jacoby, you wanted to lock that in very early, and because it's going to get to the point where it's not worth the risk in the light heavyweight division there with Menifield's power. Even a minus 250 line, you're starting to push it a little bit. You got to respect Menifield, and that line's getting a little out of hand. You want to be under minus 200, I believe, 210, 220 and down. So that line's I'm not crazy about that line. Right now, the value's on Menifield, but this is a fight that I most likely, Don't quote me. We'll see how it goes, but most likely we'll be sitting back enjoying watching this fight. And I think that Jacoby just, like I said, is a superior fighter. And keep an eye on him to make some noise in this division and work his way into the mix for the fighting for the title down the line. Over to the welterweight division, where we have Randy Rude Boy Brown taking on Muslim Salikhov. Salikhov, 39 years old now, getting up there in age. That's going to play a little bit of a factor in this fight. Randy Brown, 33 years old, cruising into the prime of his career, brings in a crazy reach advantage with that 8-inch reach advantage he'll have over Salikhov. He's 4 inches taller. Nothing new for Randy Brown. He always has that length advantage. And Randy Brown's a very good fighter. He's very active. He knows how to work the kicks in with his boxing and all that. And he's a well-rounded fighter. I have respect for his game. I do believe he's slightly overrated. We saw him completely drop the ball against Jack Della Maddalena. That was on a huge stage, and his performance was not so good. Bounced back with the victory over Wellington Turman, who has also shown to be flaky. I don't think that victory looks as good right now. An aged Francisco Trinaldo. I thought that KS Williams did defeat him in that fight. If you guys remember that fight, that was one that the majority of people agreed with me as well. Look it up online. But KS Williams, I thought he edged that fight out. Jared Gooden. Gooden finally got a little victory there in the UFC, but a guy that doesn't win very often. Alex Oliveira, late in his career, has just been taking L after L. He was knocked out by Vicente Luque. I don't want to be too harsh on him. Victory over Mickey Gall, Barberena, Warley Alves. My point is, I just think that Randy Brown is slightly overrated, especially when we get to the betting line here. Muslim Salikhov is a very polished striker, okay? A very, very polished kickboxer. We've seen that time and time again with him. We've seen him, as soon as he bursted on the scene in the UFC, he's finished guys, landed a nasty spinning back fist right in his last fight, I believe it was. I saw him starch Nordine Taleb back in the day. He's obviously a dangerous striker, and I think that he's live to get a finish here. I think he's live for that knockout. Randy Brown, he out of his 5 losses, he's been knocked out 2 times and also submitted twice. And I believe one of those submissions, right, he was hurt before he was subbed. So he does wilt a little bit at times. And I could just see Muslim Salikhov finding the mark in this fight. I think it's realistic. Now, if Randy Brown's going to try to mix things up and use the grappling, Salikhov actually has good hips. I think he's showcases about like a 75% takedown defensive rate in the UFC. I know as of recently he's been training with some of his Dagestani brothers and all that on the mats, training with this guy Sadulov, Abdul Rashid, whatever his full name is, whatever. But he says the pound for pound best wrestler. When you see this type of mat here and this type of like warehouse type situation, this is a grueling atmosphere, and you guys know that. We just heard DC talking about these types of atmospheres on the Rogan Experience, if you guys caught that episode there. So I do think that Salikhov can keep this fight standing. I think he's a little bit of a sniper as well, and we've seen Randy Brown be sniped on, okay? I'll also bring up, you got to bring up the loss to Nico Price, where he was even on top, right? Kind of got hit with those nasty hammer fists off his, Nico was off his back. I don't know, man. I'm feeling that Salikhov gets a knockout in this fight. He gets a finish. That's the route I'm going. I'm going to go with my gut here. I know that the odds aren't necessarily in agreement, as Muslim Salikhov is as high as a plus 220 on some of these books. Opened as a plus 160. We see heavy action coming in on Randy Brown. He's now a plus 204. And that could have something to do with that 39-year-old mark there for Salikhov. But I'm not saying it with an overwhelming amount of confidence. I think this is going to be a wild card. We're going to see some finishes. And this could definitely be one of those fights where we see one of those wild finishes. But a lot of action coming in on Randy Brown. Opened up as a minus 200 on Bovada. He's now minus 250. I'm going to go against the grain here. I don't say it again. I don't say it with a lot of confidence. I'm not telling you guys to put up big money on a fight like this. It's a risky fight because Randy Brown could easily cruise to a decision victory. He's a more active fighter, can use the kicks from the outside and use that range. But if the stage is how I think it's going to be, with the crowd going crazy and this card starting to get that momentum, we start seeing some finishes happening, they're going to be likely to engage, and I think Salikhov can land a shot. All right, he's a pro. All right, and we've seen him. We just talk about a couple of those finishes that he's had. Knocked out Andre Fiallo, and he had that big knockout over Nordine Taleb. Knocked out Ricky Rainey back in the day, and that's not really the biggest finish there. Melvin Gillard. He's a proven finisher, even early on in his career. I mean, he's a fighter that looks to land that big shot. He hunts that big shot. All right, so Let's see how that fight plays out. Over to some women's mixed martial arts. In the flyweight division, we got Casey O'Neill, not undefeated anymore, coming off that loss where Jennifer Maya showed up, and I was on Maya in that spot. Not a lot of people were. She's taking on Ariane Lipski here. Ariane Lipski, for anyone that's wondering, I think she started the OnlyFans up, and I've been very pleased to see her career progress. All right, she's a fun fighter to watch as far as her aggressiveness, and she's pretty well rounded, and she's fun to watch. So, coming off two victories over Melissa Gatto and JJ Aldrich. I respect both those opponents. I think those are nice little feathers there. She did get knocked out against Priscilla Cachoeira before that. Defeated Mandy Bohm prior to the Priscilla loss. Losses to Montana De La Rosa and Antonina Shevchenko. Losses to Molly McCann, Joanne Wood. I would say her losses for the most part are pretty respectable. And she has scattered respectable victories. Diana Belbita, Silvina Gomez Juarez, the Danger Striker, Luana Carolina subbed her up nice and early, and we talked about some of the other ones. But I think that she's hitting her stride here at 29 years old. Some of those early losses that she took, she was young, she was green. I think she's been learning from those losses. I like her Muay Thai skills. She's aggressive. She has some good pop on her shots, and like I said, I think she's decently well-rounded. I'm glad that she has proven to be a UFC caliber fighter, because towards the beginning of her career, I thought she maybe was just a fighter that had a look that people wanted to tune in to watch, and wasn't necessarily a legitimate UFC fighter. And that's not the case at all. She's legitimate. On the other hand, we have Casey O'Neill, who was undefeated going into that last loss. I felt, you guys can run the tape back, I felt that she was very overrated. All right. Now, when you see some of these fighters that are undefeated, it's hard to spot out some of those fighters that are kind of undefeated fraud fighters. When I say fraud, I'm just saying in the sense that I know there was people that were saying, "Oh, Casey O'Neill is going to run through this division. She's the future champ, this and that." And I'm not saying a lot of you guys said that, but I did see some people saying that she's going to be the truth, this and that. And you watch her on tape, and I'm not overly impressed with her performances. She has good grappling. We've seen her go out there and dominate before. Look at the level of competition, though. Check her resume out. I mean, she defeated Roxanne Modafari and Antonina Shevchenko, which I know Shevchenko had the victory over Lipski, but still, Antonina Shevchenko did show to be inadequate with her grappling and just a flaky fighter, a lot of ups and downs throughout her career. Victory over Lara Procopio, Shayna Dobson. Shout out to Shayna. Shayna's cool, man. She hits the DMs up once in a while. She's a cool chick, and she's rode with me on some plays. And but a fighter that didn't survive in the UFC, if we're being honest, right? So I don't really see anything here that's overwhelmingly impressive to me. The knockout over Antonina Shevchenko, the TKO victory that she had there, that's probably the biggest victory that she's had. And I don't know. We're going to go look at the betting line, and I think that this is a fight that could easily play out very closely. I could see Lipski getting the better of the striking exchanges, okay? And I think that she just has to avoid being controlled and dominated with the grappling. And right now, Ariane Lipski opened up as a plus 126. I'm going against the line movement nonstop here, man. This is going to be a wild night. We'll see how things play out. Ariane Lipski is now a plus 181 dog. We got big money coming in on Casey O'Neill. I know she's a very confident chick, and she potentially could use the grappling to really take control of this fight. But I'm going to say that Ariane Lipski shows up sharp and can keep this fight standing for enough time to showcase the Muay Thai skills and have her moments in this fight. Okay, Ariane Lipski, throughout her UFC career, showcasing a 78% takedown defensive rate, and she's nice and ready to go. She's ready to go here. All right, so I want to side with another dog on this card. I told you this card is going to be filled with dog picks for me. I can't wait to see how this fight plays, or the night plays out overall with my dog picks. But I know the plays that I'm targeting, we're going to be hitting. We'll stick talking to some women's mixed martial arts. We'll bump up a weight division, up to the bantamweight division. The number 5 ranked bantamweight fighter, Irene Aldana, taking on the number 9th ranked bantamweight fighter, Karol Rosa. Karol Rosa, still only 28 years old. I feel that her career really hasn't progressed nearly as good as it should have, or maybe as much as I thought it could have, and obviously as much as she would have liked it to. This was a fighter that came in to the UFC with a lot of respect behind her name. People had high hopes for her, and she's taken a lot of L's. I shouldn't say a lot of L's, but she's taken some L's. And even when you take a look at the victories that she's had in the cage, there's fights that played out a lot closer than they probably should have. Okay, so she had a victory over Vanessa Mello. Mello dissipated from the UFC. Jocelyn Edwards early in her career, she edged her out, right? Betcha Carrera. The big fight that she lost was Sarah McMahon, that really kind of derailed a lot of her momentum. And the Lena Landsberg fight wasn't that impressive to me. Norma Dumont went out there and styled on her there, I would say. Yana Santos in her last fight, that was another fight that played out extremely close, a split decision victory for her there. Some people thought Santos could have won that fight. And Karol Rosa is just a well-rounded fighter, but she moves kind of slowly. She's just a little bit plotty, but she's well-rounded. And on the other hand, you have Irene Aldana. She's an absolute horse, all right? You could ride her into town, all right? She's a mule. She has good power. I like her aggressiveness. I'm a big fan of her fighting style. When we're talking women's mixed martial arts, I'm putting Irene Aldana up there with some of the more entertaining fighters. I really like her style, man. She's just she feels like she's in a real scrap when she's out there, man. She's not going out there to try to do some styling points and edge out a decision. And she's very stiff, and she's looking to just to unravel, and just uncock that big overhand. And I think that she's gonna land some shots on Karol Rosa here. Karol Rosa at times is there to be hit, and I could see some power shots being landed. We could dive into some numbers here. Karol Rosa actually landing more than Irene Aldana and absorbing less. So the numbers favoring more towards her way. But I like that power edge for Aldana. I like the range that she'll have in this fight. She doesn't have the biggest reach advantage as far as her arms go, but she does have a good advantage as far as her legs go. Okay, you take a look at the stature here, where Aldana is 4 inches taller, and she only has a 1 inch reach advantage, but she's 4 inches taller. She throws some powerful kicks from the outside as well, and I'm not ready to bank in on Karol Rosa trying to slop some meat and potatoes in front of my face and try to sneak in a takedown and just kind of do her a little pitter patter from the outside. I'm going to ride the horse in the town here on Irene Aldana. I'm going to say she lands some heavy boxing shots. She makes this a scrap. We already talked about how this is a huge stage. Irene Aldana thrives in this type of situation. She's going to thrive in this situation. She's going to look to make this a legitimate fight. I like it, even if it goes to the judges' scorecards, and I like her to land some powerful shots. Rosa's never been finished by KO. I'm not going to be banking on a knockout victory for Aldana here, even though she has that type of power. But it's hard to bank on something like that in the women's bantamweight division, women's mixed martial arts fight, where a girl in Rosa has shown to be kind of tough. But some of those damaging shots can lead to Rosa just not looking good, losing confidence in the cage, and Irene Aldana taking over this fight. So on my bookie, Aldana did open up as a -170 favorite. Heavy action coming in on her. She's now a -220. So I'm siding this time with the line movement. I am taking Irene Aldana, and I like her. I like her in this spot. And not crazy about the -220 line. We'll see how this line trends if it dips back and forth. Very early on, it's getting slammed. So you had to have been on this line nice and early. Let's see what else we see here. On Jazz Sports, she opened as a -219 on Jazz Sports, and it's going back to a 213, so opened a little higher. I would hope to see Aldana around a -180, 190, or going back to 170. That would be nice. And give me Irene Aldana landing those nice, stiff, powerful shots, man. She's like a spring, that you're hanging your heavy bag, one of those tight springs, and she explodes. Oh, you didn't know? Na, 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 na. Yo ass better call somebody. Let's go. We're talking some ranked flyweight action here. One of my favorite divisions. I like both these fighters. I love the stylistic matchup here. The number 13th ranked Tagir Ulanbekov taking on the newly ranked Cody Durden, who's been on an absolute tear, continues to get underestimated. This dude, he's a problem in the division, okay? He's been grinding over at American Top Team. He's very well-rounded. He is a problem. We'll get to the betting line here in a second. But, Cody Durden coming off a huge victory over Jake Hadley. I'm very high on Jake Hadley. And what he did using the wrestling to stifle him there, thought it was very impressive. What he did to Charles Johnson, what he did to Carlos Mota. Shout out to Carlos Mota, man. Actually, just followed me on IG and shot me a message completely randomly. So I followed him back, and I'm obviously going to be rooting him on. Just a cool dude. Just peep the teller. So I'm a big fan of Carlos Mota's at this point in time. Knocked out JP Bays. Was submitted by Muhammad Mikhailov. You guys remember that? Was hit with the flying knee. That was the big loss to really to kick off the beginning of his career. Also was submitted by Jimmy Flick. Jimmy Flick was submitting everyone back then, and went to a draw with Chris Gutierrez. That's respectable. That was up in the bantamweight division too. So, but the move down to the flyweight division has been the right move, I believe. And Tagir Ulanbekov, out of all these Dagestani fighters, I would say he might be a fighter that's a little bit overrated. I don't know. A lot of people thought that Alan Nascimento should have won that fight. I believe that fight did take place in Abu Dhabi, and he eked out a decision there. And, lost to Tim Elliott. That was a close fight. Some people actually thought he won that fight, but still, 2 losses potentially there in a row. I do respect the Bruno Silva victory. I'm very high on Bruno. And he just submitted Nate Maness. So that was a nice little bounce back victory for him there. He's a very rangy flyweight fighter. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage here. And, a little bit more slender and long. Cody Durden, I think that Cody is very live to go out here and actually have success even in the grappling department. I think Ulanbekov will be willing to go down to the mat and try to have success there in his own right. And I could see Durden kind of settling in some dominant positions on the feet. I could see Durden landing those boxing strikes that just kind of creep up on people. They creep up on his opponents. They just don't see it coming. It just catches them off guard. I could see Durden kind of doing that here once again. It's that same type of betting line. We're going to type of the betting line here. It's that same type of betting line on Durden where he's coming in as a slight to moderate underdog, and he just goes out there and looks to handle business. I just want to mention one more time, from what I've been hearing, Cody Durden has been just a stud over at American Top Team, just going to work, man. He shows up to ATT in Coconut Creek with that hard hat and a bag of hammers, all right, and a 10-inch, a 10-inch cables. He walks in. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about there. Shout out to anybody that knows what I'm talking about there if you catch that reference. But he shows up with those 10-inch cables and a bag of hammer. He goes to work, man. This dude goes to work. When you go to work like that and you have that type of work ethic, especially in a facility like that, you're going to see major, major growth in his game. And that's just what's going on right now. Obviously, he had the wrestling background as he worked into to MMA. And picking another dog here. How about that? Another dog coming your way. He's as high as a plus 147 on Jazz Sports. He opened as a plus 126. So the action going the other way, going against the action once again. I cannot wait to see how this night turns out, man. You guys got to tune into the recap because I'm either going to be looking stupid and some of you guys are going to be angry with me, or I'm going to be looking like a genius with some of these fights, man. Going with another dog. I just feel the value is on him, and I have this fight capped with Cody Durden as like a minus 135 favorite. All right, I do believe that. Maybe a minus 120. I have him as a slight favorite. All right, you put a gun to my head, I feel that I got to side with Cody Durden right now with the momentum that he has going into the cage, and with as talented as Tagir Ulanbekov is, we've seen him have these little miscues in the cage and have these moments where he's moving. He's a slow starter, and I think he could run into some problems, man. So obviously, I feel the values on Durden. I have Durden winning this fight by unanimous decision. I'm going to say he wins 2 out of 3 rounds comfortably. Let me pull that back. I won't say comfortably. I don't need to go too far. He wins 2 of the 3 rounds, and he gets the decision, does Cody Durden. And then people are really going to start respecting his name. You're going to start to see him potentially come in as a favorite against some of these fighters moving forward. So, as many of you guys already know, Bryce Mitchell steps in on short notice to take on Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett was supposed to be taking on Giga Chikazi. Obviously, a different type of stylistic opponent here. You're going from one of the more polished strikers in the UFC, really. I mean, especially in the division. Now compared to a guy in Thug Nasty that just is going to march forward nonstop with pressure and look to grapple with you. With Thug Nasty taking this fight on short notice, that could potentially be a little bit of an issue. I mean, you would be naive to think that that potentially couldn't be an issue here. But the way that he jumped into this fight, and you see him on social media with all this confidence, I think that he's been training hardcore and he's been ready to go. He's coming off, a performance against Dan Ige where he looked very, very good. Coming off the loss before that to Ilia Topuria, that was a great rebound fight. Dan Ige is a great fighter, a very underrated fighter, and stylistically he does a lot of things similar to Ilia Topuria, I would say. He's a hard hitter, has the grappling in his back pocket, and I like the way that Thug Nasty came into that fight confident and implemented his game plan and just took that fight. So, here's the thing, right? When you take a look at this fight here, I'm going to say this much. Stylistically, and based on everything that's going on, it could be a little bit of an issue for Mitchell because taking the fight on short notice, is he going to be able to go out there and push the pace nonstop for 15 minutes like he likes to do with the grappling and really rip this fight down to the mat consistently on a guy in Josh Emmett who has wrestling, right? Has good takedown defense. Josh Emmett, real quick, we'll pull the numbers up. Josh Emmett, he has the wrestling background, long-time Team Alpha Male product. This isn't going to work, actually, because it was a newly added fight. So, but he has that wrestling background. And even though he wasn't training for a fighter that was going to bring that type of threat to him, Josh Emmett knows how to stuff takedowns. He knows how to grapple, man. And, I couldn't pull this up, actually. Let's just take a look. His takedown defensive stats, he has showcased a 47% takedown defensive rate. Don't worry about that number too much. Just know that he does know how to grapple. And if he can keep this fight standing and look to land those damaging shots on Bryce Mitchell, we've seen Mitchell touched up before, and his face does injure. We've seen him with the big swollen eyes, the bloody face, and all that. And I could see Emmett doing some of that here. And obviously, remember, Josh Emmett was training for this date. I'm going to say that one more time. That's a major X factor in this fight. But Josh Emmett, now 38 years old, still in phenomenal shape, but coming off some tough losses. The Ilia Topuria fight, he took so much damage in that fight. Ilia Topuria defeating both these men, but in the fight against Emmett really took an extreme amount of damage. It was almost hard to watch. And then Yair Rodriguez really hurt him up in those 9 minutes there as well and finished him up with the sub. And Emmett's going to look for that big power shot on the feet with his hands. Going to look to sprawl and brawl. I got to go with my boy Thug Nasty here. Even though he's taking this fight on short notice, man, I just think that I have a feeling. Look, this was 7 days ago. It looks to be in great shape. I think that he was training hard for this fight. I think that he's going to be ready to go, and I think that he's going to do what he does best. And I don't know what you guys feel about this, but he said in the Ilia Topuria fight, not that he would ever take that fight. In my opinion, I think Ilia wins that fight regardless, but he did say that and I believe him, he had some things going on outside the cage. I mean, he was really battling some type of flu and all that. So that wasn't the best version of him. And when he's ready to go, he's an absolute problem for anybody. He's younger. He's more primed. I think he pushes the pace here and takes this fight. And also, even on the feet with his volume and whatnot, I could see him touching Emmett up a little bit. And Emmett is another fighter that has been shown to damage. So I see a lot of blood, a lot of damage in this fight. Give me my boy, Thug Nasty. Let's go take a look at the betting line, see what we're talking about here. All right, so right now, Bryce Mitchell is the slight favorite, even taking this fight on short notice. He opened up as a minus 130 in my bookies, now minus 145. All right, so action coming his way. You got to be a little bit wary with this matchup here, with him taking the fight on short notice. I know I'm ringing your guys' ears with the short notice, but that is the X factor in this fight. But it's still not stopped me from siding with Bryce here. Bryce will push the pace. I think that it will be a grueling fight just with the pace in general, and I think that Mitchell will just keep coming forward and just snag up the rounds there with just that pressure and the volume. In the welterweight division, we got two former teammates squaring off with each other. These men are very familiar with each other. Garry taking on Vicente Luque. This is a step up in competition for Garry. You need to note that, okay? Garry has looked phenomenal, which don't worry, guys. I'm gonna go in on Garry here in a second. You guys know that, but Garry, he's very talented, man. He's 26 years old and he has a lot of promise. But understand, he really hasn't put in that much work, if you ask me. I mean, recognizable names, but he knocked out Song Kanan. He knocked out Daniel Rodriguez, but Daniel Rodriguez, nothing but respect towards his way. But I think that he's kind of been enjoying himself outside the cage a lot more these days, and he's not the same fighter that he once was. And Neil Magny, way past his prime, an age fighter. You're getting a Vicente Luque that's coming off a huge victory over RDA, still only 32 years old. Extremely polished, extremely well-rounded. Brings in some X factors here too, right? You saw him in the last fight. He was using his grappling and clinch work to control RDA up against the cage, using his size there. I don't think he'll necessarily be able to do that to Garry. I think he's going to be crafty and has good footwork, and I think that'll be a little bit difficult for Luque to do. But the point is that Luque is a fighter that brings a lot of tools to the fight, and he could frustrate Garry here. Garry has a lot of things going on outside the cage. You see, you can't even comment on his post nowadays. You guys know what's going on. It's funny because I was one of the first people to peep all this, and I was one of the first people to be talking about it because I couldn't stand him just from multiple ways, the ways he handled himself. The way he handled himself against Neil Magny, that was ridiculous, trying to make up some fake stories, exaggerating some story. He's I guess you call him like a simp or something. I don't know, whatever you want to call him, but he's one of those dudes, man. I feel like his kid would be a spoiled brat and he wouldn't even discipline him because, it's too, you can't do like things like in the old days. He's one of those types of dudes. You let an old woman snag you up. This guy had the world by the balls, and I think he really dropped the ball with his situation. But I just don't really like guys that move the way he moves. I'm a different type of guy, and he's corny. I don't like him, but I'm a big fan of his fighting style, and I think that he has the potential to be a real threat. I don't like how he has Machado mixed up in his name. I don't like anything that he stands for. I think he's the opposite of an alpha male, all right? And, I consider myself an alpha male. I think you guys should all consider yourself an alpha male. I think it's a good thing to be an alpha male. I know some of you guys maybe disagree or whatnot. Hopefully you don't take my views too harshly, but I'm not really fans of guys like this. And it's one thing if you're like that, but to be so vocal and arrogant about that. So that's what I'll say about him. And maybe on an X-rated episode, maybe I'll have to put it on Twitter or something. I can go in a lot more on that. But here's the thing. I think Vicente Luque, like I said, brings in some real problems for Ian Garry. I think he'll have all the solutions. And Ian Garry, just what he did to Neil Magny was phenomenal, just landing so many strikes. And I think that he'll be a step ahead of Luque. And Luque is there to be hit. So Luque has taken a lot of damage. He has a granite chin, but he is a 32-year-old that has the damage and the fighting experience, I guess you would say, the damage throughout the years. He's really like a 37-year-old, if you ask me. He's to spar hard. From what I've heard, he's always sparred hard. He's been in a lot of crazy fights from a very early age. He's like a 36-year-old at least, and you got this young primed, I shouldn't say prime, but a young up-and-coming Ian Garry who is looking good, man. So let me not go on too much about this. I think you guys know where I stand. The volume of Ian Garry, he'll be working from the outside. He'll be striking on Luque, and Luque, absorbs a lot of shots, 5.15 strikes per minute, and Ian Garry is hard to touch at 3.58. I got Ian Garry here. Let's go take a look at the betting line, see what we're talking about, man. Ian Garry's a big favorite, man. A minus 375 already. Open as a minus 260. Major movement already towards his way. I think we could see this line continue to go that way into the minus 400 range, and then maybe eventually you'll see it dip back a little bit. But I think he'll settle in around in the minus 400s, the low minus 400s. People are high on Ian Garry. I'm excited to see him matched up with some of the big dogs in the division. After this victory, he will be in the mix for some of those types of fights, and I cannot wait to see him get starched and put out. And I can't wait to see the next fighter we're going to be talking about get starched too. So this card has the potential to be so exciting. Besides all the big fights and whatnot, you got two fighters that I can't stand, and Paddy Pimblett and Ian Garry. I would love to see both those guys get flatlined on the same card. How cool would that be? What, you too good to hit that like button? What's up with that? Pause for a second. Hit the pause button. Go click that like button. It means a lot to me. Merry Christmas. So here we go. Paddy Pimblett gets Tony Ferguson as Ferguson comes into this fight on a 6-fight losing skid, which is crazy because before that losing skid kicked off, he was on a 12-fight winning streak. You guys know his career has just plummeted as he's gotten up in age and he's taken a lot of damage. It was the Justin Gaethje fight. Make no mistake, that Justin Gaethje fight, I've said it time and time again, that was a fight that I have as one of the fighters taking the most damage in a cage fight that we've ever seen. I have it there at the top of the list. Fight should have been stopped early on. Tony was too tough for his own good. I mean, you saw his brain. He was shaking his head. It's like the wires were getting shorted. Instead of him just getting flatlined, he just was able to zombie mode in there and take so much damage. And he was really never the same after that fight. Obviously, when he was in his prime, one of the greatest that we've ever seen, one of the greatest lightweights. It's a shame we never got to see the Khabib fight. I think we know how that fight would have went. I think that Khabib would have nullified him down on the mat. Who knows, though? Tony has crazy elbows and crazy attacks off his back, good jiu-jitsu, all that. Paddy Pimblett, 28 years old, getting a 39-year-old slab of meat in front of him. I think we know which way this fight's going to go. Unfortunately, I'm rooting for Tony in a major way. You know that Tony's been training with like David Goggins. So I think his cardio is going to be crazy. And I think that if this fight was a dog fight and it went to the later rounds, I could see Ferguson potentially having some success there. But the issue is in that type of fight, for that fight to take place, he's going to have to take damage. And then even though his cardio will be good, when he's taking that damage, I think we're going to see him start to wilt. That's been kind of a common theme in all of his recent fights, right? It's like, even in some of the fights that he's looked good, it's like as the fight progresses, he starts to tune out almost. Like his brain can't even concentrate. It's like he has ADHD in there from the damage he's taken. It's like, Bobby Green finishes that fight in the 3rd round. Nate Diaz snags up a submission on him in the 4th round. In the Chandler fight, in the 2nd round there, all of a sudden he doesn't pay attention for a second, gets his head kicked off his shoulders. Beneil Dariush grappled him up in that fight. But, and I think that Paddy could potentially use some wrestling and some grappling to kind of control him down on the mat. Potentially, we'll see how that takes place. But one thing I will say, I won't talk about this fight too much in depth because I just think that Paddy is the younger, more primed fighter, and I think that Paddy's probably going to get a submission here. I think he probably hurts him a little bit here and there, and then eventually sets up a sub. And keep in mind, Paddy's coming off that loss against Jared Gordon. We all know that he lost that fight, but submitted Jordan Levitt before that. And you know what? Let me say this. You really take a look at his resume now with knowing that he really lost the Jared Gordon fight, and Jordan Levitt, not Jared Gordon, but Jordan Levitt hasn't been looking that good as of recently. So that sub doesn't really look that good. Kazula Vargas, who? Then they got Luigi Vendramini, who hurt Paddy early in that fight, almost finished him, and then he was finished. This resume ain't looking all that, but when it's all said and done, I don't think that Tony's mind and all this is going to hold up. I'm sorry to say. So Paddy Pimblett, as high as a minus 410 on Bet Online, open as a minus 250. Major action going his way. Right now on my bookie, he is a minus 325. He opened as a minus 275. So a little bit of scattered action, but one thing is consistent. The line's trending towards Paddy's way, and it's understandable, man. I think that Paddy's going to be like around a minus 400 steadily across the board when the fight kicks off. 450. I think that we're going to see line movement go his way. I think that people just don't think Tony's going to hold up, and I think they're probably going to be right. I think that Paddy finishes this fight and gets a sub. I think he hurts Tony a little bit. Tony starts looking aged, and a sub gets locked in. Maybe Irene could choke something wild. I'm hoping the fight could be entertaining. I'm hoping Tony shows up. Trust me, man. I'm hoping big. All right? We'll see. The number 5th ranked welterweight fighter, Shavkat Rakhmonov. His time is now. All right? I mean, there's no hiding him anymore. I mean, he's the number 5th ranked welterweight fighter, and he gets a victory here over the number 6th, Stephen Thompson, a household name. Shavkat, he gets the big fights moving forward. So it's going to be great to see how he finally gets matched up against the best. I have him penciled in right now, potentially as the best welterweight in the world. I mean, Khamzat, you guys know I was very high on him. He's left the division, and honestly, I think Shavkat gets the better of Khamzat Chimaev. I think that he's more well-rounded and just seems to be a more dangerous opponent as far as I'm concerned. Been putting in steady work over at Team Killcliff, Henry Hooft. You see Robbie Lawler over there, Michael Chandler over there. He's so well-rounded. He throws nasty strikes on the feet. He's big. He's huge. He has a huge frame. He can grapple. Let's be clear. If he's intelligent, we're going to see how his fighter IQ is in this fight, which could be a major tell how his career will go down the line, because he's going to have an easy path to victory. If he wants to just push the grappling, he goes out here, he takes Stephen Thompson down. Now you got to be careful. Don't run into a strike just right off the rip, but he goes out there, sets up that takedown, and he will take over this fight. He'll finish this fight down on the mat potentially. Stephen Thompson, you take a look at his last. He had the victory in his last fight over Kevin Holland, which I was there for that fight. Kevin Holland allowed him to just do what he does. Fought the fight horribly. Talk about fighter IQ. But before that, 2 losses in a row against Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad, I believe, and fights that. Stephen Thompson, you see that he's just a little bit slower with his movement. He's aging, and I just, Shavkat can get a hold of him and he can take him down and he can do what he wants to do. But if he's going to try to put a show on for the fans and he's going to try to set up a big shot in his own right, I do see Shavkat landing something wild on him and knocking Thompson out. We've seen Thompson knocked out against Pettis. But you're opening up a whole different can of worms there, because Wonder Boy can counter you. This is the fight game. You never know when a shin could go up the side of your head and you get knocked out, and Thompson derails all that hype. This is the fight game. The fight game is unpredictable. So again, we're going to see what his fighter IQ is about here. If he fights an intelligent fight, he absolutely dominates Wonder Boy. And I have him really dominating the fight regardless, any way the fight goes. But Thompson's a phenomenal striker. It's just that, he's now 40 years old, and the movement and just the age, it's going to catch up with him. He's going to be a little bit slower with his reaction time and all that. And I can see Shavkat landing, spinning heel kick or something wild, man, something heavy, maybe just a simple straight down the pipe. But I'm sensing finish here for Shavkat. Shavkat has never been to a decision, man. All knockouts, all subs, okay? And Thompson, has only been finished once, right? But age is catching up with him here, and you guys know what the game, how the game is, man. It doesn't treat these older fighters well, man. Once you hit that 40 marker, Shavkat is a minus 600 right now, open as of minus 476 on my bookie. Let's see what else we see here. Shavkat on Bovada, open as a 425, minus 600. That's the type of movement we're seeing here. Heavy action coming in on him. And obviously, I'm following the line as well, man. Everyone's on Shavkat, I think. If you're on Wonder Boy, comment below. I want to see if anyone has Wonder Boy to win this fight. If somehow he can keep this fight standing and make it a fight that goes to a decision, and he can eke out a decision, scoring some points, I mean, that would be wild to see, but I just don't see it, man. I think Shavkat is the truth. And I didn't put too much time to think about that right now, but is Shavkat versus the winner of Leon Edwards and Colby Covington the next fight to make? Is that, let's take a quick look. I'm sorry, guys, if you don't mind. Let's just see. I'm just winging this right now. We didn't, in the welterweight division, you have Madalena and Burns. That's the. Oh, you got Bilal Muhammad. You got Bilal Muhammad there. He's the other name that's in the mix. So maybe Shavkat versus Bilal. After that, would love to see that. And what are you gonna do? Big time favorite. For those of you guys that are desperate to have action on this, just throw Shavkat in a parlay. You're telling me you've been tuned into the teller for all this time and you still haven't hit that subscribe button? All right, hold the phone. Pause. Go to the channel right now. Hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to me. Appreciate you guys. This fight's just straight fireworks. Listen, when you're talking about an MMA fight, a UFC fight, you're talking about just that fight being entertaining. If you wanted to take one of your friends that doesn't watch fighting at all and you want to introduce them to the sport and you want them just to be entertained, this is the fight that you want them to see, straight up. Now, they don't have the biggest of names. You guys know the flyweight division is not the most respected division. Pantoja just snatched up the belt. Royval, I've said this from almost the very beginning as far as he came into the UFC. He is one of the most entertaining fighters, if not the most entertaining fighter on the roster. He's an absolute nonstop action. Pantoja is the same type of dude. This fight's going to be exhilarating. It's going to be crazy. Both men, in their physical primes, basically. I love this fight. Now, how do I see this fight playing out? We also must remember now, Pantoja already has a submission victory over Royval. That is important, although time has changed. But, Royval has been an absolute fire. We talked about the 3-fight winning streak. He just went out there and knocked out Matheus Nicolau. Matheus Nicolau is a fighter that I've compared to Pantoja throughout the years. They're very similar. Phenomenal Muay Thai type strikers, great BJJ behind them, very well-rounded, both representing Brazil, similar frames. He went out there and passed that test, submitted Matt Schnell before that, defeated Rogerio Bontarand. It was a split decision, I do believe, and then we had the Pantoja submission loss there. That was back in 2021. We're talking 2 years and a couple months later. A lot has changed, especially when you have a fighter at 31, creeping into his prime, getting this confidence behind him. He's dangerous, man. Royval is dangerous. But I will say this. Pantoja is a much more grounded fighter, technically. And that could be, I definitely would say that's a better thing to be. It's a more grounded thing to be. I'll have more confidence on a fighter that has that behind him. But that also being said, Royval's unpredictability and unorthodoxness, if that's a word, being so unorthodox, that also has its benefits because he comes from wild and strange angles, and you never know when something wild can hit. He's a fight finisher. But all in all, like I said, I'm going to back the fighter that has the more sound fundamentals and that's going to be better in those fields, right? If Pantoja fights a smart fight, I could see Pantoja being the fighter that's on top for the most part, having more polished BJJ if he can kind of slow things down. But when this fight's unwinding, though, if things are getting wild in there, Royval can have his moments as well. The same could be said on the feet. Pantoja is the more technical Muay Thai fighter. He's a little bit more base with his style, throw the heavy leg kicks and set up his boxing, while Royval will be throwing all this wild type of attacks at him. But you're going to favor the more grounded fighter in that type of situation, which I think it's obvious. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I am siding with Pantoja. I'm a huge fan of his. His last fight where he defeated Brandon Moreno, that was a tough card for me. I was at the bar drowning myself and some bruise there, and I was feeling some pain based on the way that card was playing out. And I slammed the Pantoja line right before that fight started in dog odds, and it was much needed. All right, so that eased some of the pain away from that night, and I was just chasing some dog action there because I saw some value. But I wasn't necessarily targeting him leading up to that fight. That was one of those, you guys know what I'm talking about, when you're going through a card and you're looking for some dog value. But obviously he's in my graces right now. I love the post-fight speech that he had. I thought that was deep. What he said about, with his father and all that. I thought that was extremely deep. And I am a fan. Okay, there's no question about it. I am a fan. And you take a look right there, man. That's him sinking in that rear naked choke. All right, so I got to lean Pantoja. Let's go talk the betting line on this fight. Pantoja right now is a minus 180 on my bookie. Open as a minus 256. So major action coming in, or a good amount of action coming in on Royval, interestingly enough. But I understand it because the line opened kind of steep. And this is a fight that has a lot of angles. It can go a lot of different ways. And I do feel that with the way that the line opened up, there was value on Royval. But as it closes in, you're getting back to that neighborhood of the value being on Pantoja. Okay, so, plus 192, maybe there's some action there in Royval, plus 140. I don't see it as much. I like Alexander Pantoja to go out here and do what he does. And we already saw in his last fight, man, that he comes through and rematches very well, right? Did the same thing to Brandon Moreno, right? Had a victory over him before, did it again. I see him doing the same thing here. Okay, so give me Pantoja to get a finish, in a 5-round fight. I think Royval will open up an opportunity for that finish to come. Now, you guys, I'm throwing out an offer that I don't think I've ever thrown an offer out there like this. If you sign up through my Bovada.lv referral link, you're getting a free 1-month package for my official plays. That's $100 value. You get an added bonus to your Bovada account. I'm here to answer any questions you have about it. So also you got me in your ear, or I got you in my ear, however you want to say that. But this is the sports book you want to work with. It's a great sports book. Everything it's very neat. The lines are good. I like this website a lot. I've made a lot of money through it. They always pay out properly. Hit me up through email, Instagram, or Twitter. Just shoot me a message. I'll get you that link. And if you have any questions, just ask away. But I'm going to give you a 1-month package. Okay, so you're going to get this event. You're going to get you're going to get 1 month of plays. Okay, so essentially you're going to get four packages. Okay, 4 cards of official plays. Check that out. All right, that's a great deal. You won't regret it. Hit me up. Here we go. We got the UFC welterweight championship of the world on the line. Leon Edwards, no doubt about it, man. The legitimate champ went out there, defeated Kamaru Usman 2 times in a row. He's now taking out Colby Covington. I think this is a great feather that Edwards could potentially put in his cap. All right, you get a victory over Colby Covington. Obviously, that weighs a lot. And we would have seen a major change in the guard in the division, right? Usman and Colby were consistently known as the 2 top guys, 2 top dogs in the division. Edwards just messes that all up. Okay, so initially, as the video kicked off, I mentioned as Colby hasn't fought in the cage for about 2 years now, dating back to that Masvidal fight where he dominated him. Okay, so almost 2 years since the last time he's been in there. So there is going to be some ring rust if you believe in that. And also, Colby's creeping up on 36. There's some things going against him here, as Leon Edwards is 32 years old in the prime of his career with an overwhelming amount of confidence behind him. I think that Leon Edwards will have the edge as far as the striking goes. I think. I don't say that with a lot of confidence because Colby pushes the pace and puts a lot of volume out there. And I could see Colby kind of just outlanding him a little bit more so, but Leon Edwards is a sniper. I think his strikes will hit with a little bit more oomph. But if he's letting Colby walk him down and just outvolume him, that might play out towards Colby's way, even if the fight stays standing, right? So Colby does have very underrated striking. We'll see how that all plays out. But the X factor that Colby has is that he can threaten to change levels, and he could get some takedowns in this fight. And I think this fight could potentially look a lot similar to a lot more similar to the fight of Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards the first time around before the head kick landed, or maybe even very similar. Maybe it looks, very similar as Colby's is doing his thing out there and Edwards finally gets that knockout shot late in the fight. I could see that as well. We've seen Colby finish late in fights, like when he fought Usman the first time around. Maybe Edwards gets that late finish. But as the fight plays out for time, I think that Colby Covington will be the aggressor, and I think that Colby will get some takedowns in this fight. I do believe that. I think that he'll work Edwards against the cage. I think Edwards will have success at times, but it's a 25-minute fight. Colby arguably has the best cardio in the fight game. Okay, and I don't think that even the layoff is going to affect that. This guy is in phenomenal shape, and I do believe that Usman was not the same man he was when he came into that rematch. And that's why, some of you will disagree and whatnot, but I don't think that Usman was the same fighter. He looked extremely sluggish. I just rewatched that fight again, rewatched the tape on that fight. I don't want to take too much away from Edwards because he had a phenomenal performance, but Usman was not the same Usman that he was the first time they fought. And I don't think that he'll be as good as a Colby right now, a fresh Colby that's had a lot of time to let his body relax. And I think we're going to see Colby get some takedowns. All right. I know some of you guys don't want to hear that. I think that he's going to press and the fight's going to maybe possibly play out close, but the volume, the activity, it leans towards Colby's way, in my opinion. Colby, landing 4.1 strikes, which I was surprised to see that number. I thought it was going to be much higher, but still landing 1.3 strikes per minute more so than Edwards. He's more offensive. Leon Edwards is more polished defensively, but we'll see how that goes. The X factor, the grappling, of course, and Leon Edwards has showcased pretty good takedown defense throughout his career, but we've seen him struggle in some big fights or have moments where it's affected him a little bit. So yeah, I got Colby to take this fight. I'm going to say he takes a decision. It's going to be a high-paced fight, and Colby's going to do what he does best, man. Listen, love him or hate him, he's really a good fighter, man. He really is, and he just mixes everything in so good with the volume of the striking, the wrestling, this and that. So I'm excited. I'm very excited for this one, and I will be leaning Colby. And obviously, I do feel the value is more so on him when you're seeing lines next to his name, like a plus 119 underdog betting line. All right, a plus 120 bet online. I wouldn't be crazy. I wouldn't be crazy about taking the champ here at a minus 145 line. This fight it's very close, but you're battling a guy with the crazy gas tank. The wrestling, striking intangibles, he mixes up everything so well. And comment below, are you guys Colby fans, or are you guys hoping to see him get starched? You're hoping to see him get head kicked and have his other tooth knocked out of his face like Machado did to him. You guys got to let me know who you're rooting for here. How do you see this fight taking place? All right, guys, that's going to wrap up UFC 296. You guys know I got some solid parting words for you as we cruise into Christmas. We're in the holiday season. It's Christmas time. We're in December. It's the holiday season. And I'll say this much. Maybe some of you guys need to hear this, because I know I go through times, man, where, listen, when you got negative people around you, which you're going to bump into them one way or another. Hopefully you're not around them for too long, whether you're just, on the streets driving around, some idiot in the road, whether it's in the workplace, family, friends, your wife, anything, okay? Your in-laws, anything like that. Listen, you got to keep positive energy, man. And this is how you do it, man. Just, you take a step back, right? As you're going through the motions of your day, and you just conversate with yourself and you take things into perspective. Sometimes it's very natural to get caught up into that negativity when someone does something. You're like, I can't believe they just did this to me. Or, this person's doing this to me. And you start getting deep in your negative thoughts. You get annoyed. Take a step back, put some Christmas music on, focus first and foremost on your health. And if you're healthy and you're good to go, you're already dominating this. You're winning. That's the best. Now, if you're not feeling good health-wise, focus on what you need to do to get your health good. But all these other people and all this other stuff don't matter. You just need to use the power of your mind to tune those people out. Crack the Christmas tunes. Focus on something that makes you feel good for a little bit. Like maybe putting the fights on, enjoy the night. If you're stable enough, crack a beer, whatever you got to do, man. Just sit back. And then you'll start to chuckle and you'll laugh a little bit about these negative people. And you'll realize they have no power over you. They cannot control your happiness. All right, guys? That's as simple as that. I had a situation a week ago. Something was going on. Not to get into details. Something a little strange, wild from, something. When I was younger, man, I used to really get caught up in some of my negative thoughts. I used to be someone that always feels like I need to do something about situations. And sometimes you realize as you get older, you don't always need to waste your energy, and it's not worth it. And like I said, I cracked some Christmas tunes, and I realized that I'm winning right now, and I feel great. And I completely forgot about that situation, and it wasn't worth my time. And life is good, man. I got my health going good right now, and I'm lucky enough to be able to hop on this mic here and have you guys listening to me. And I'm happy, man. And I hope all you guys are happy too. I hope you guys enjoy this event. And remember, it's just like betting. I'm not always going to have everything rolling as good as it is right now. That's just the process of life. We're going to have ups and downs. It's just like betting, right? You have a profitable card, you feel great. You have a crappy card, you kind of feel a little shitty for the night. I lost this card. Ups and downs. Weather the storms. Some of you guys are obviously going through some stuff. You have thousands of people tuning in right now. And those are going to pass. You're going to hit your groove, and you're going to enjoy them even more so. And enjoy your time while you're here on planet Earth. And whatever you believe in, in the afterlife or whatever you believe in. And just enjoy your time. All right, guys, enjoy the fights. Stay up to date with me on Instagram and Twitter all throughout the fight week. A lot of content coming your way. It's much appreciated if you can like this button, subscribe, and catch me on my social media. If you want to work with me, shoot me a message as well. Appreciate you guys. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.